Queen Shalisha show, and on my show, I want to read a book called Befriend by and Voskamp and by also Scott Sauls. Befriend is created belonging of age of judgment, isolation, and fear. This author is a husband, Patty, of Dad, Abby, Ellie, and a Christ of Presbyterian Church in Nashville, Tennessee. Author of Jesus Outside the Lines. Previously, Scott was lead preaching pastor for Redeemer Presbyterian Church of New York City. So I love to see different views of different people, what they think. So when I picked it up, I really loved the cover, and I like the word befriend because sometimes people go crazy on Facebook when you befriend them. But it says befriend the other race. So I love this because it's like an independent study for me. I would call myself a doctor, a spiritual doctor without a degree though. I don't have a degree in doctor, but just being around all type of different people, that's how you become really a doctor. You can go to school for a doctor, for a degree. Okay, so let's go here. I have a confession. I'm at 119. I'm going to start at chapter 14 because since I was talking about respecting your color. I have a confession to make. Not long ago, I was naive enough to believe that electing a black president would go a long way in solving the race problem. And yet, 50 years into the post-civil rights era, it has now become clear that we are not yet ready to call ourselves post-racial people. I was painfully reminded of this when a friend sent me New York Times essay written by George Yancey, a black philosopher, is a professor of Emory University, called A Dear White America. In his essay, Dr. Yancey lamented the state of things for people of color in Western society in his view, when the history books, the evening news, entertainment business. All right, so this is him. Okay, so where was I? Dr. Yancey lament of the state things for people of the color of Western society. In his view, when the history books and evening news, entertainment, business, education, political, and church cultures are shaped by the white perspective, people of color have little choice but to live under what is called the yoke of whiteness. The white America, the use of the phrase may seem unfair. So I just started reading this one today. The word yoke feels inflammatory. I haven't even got to this, so this is new for me. So the word yoke feels inflammatory because it harkens back to the days of slavery. We in the modern West are against slavery and the racism that supported, right? The public schools are radically integrated now. Lynching and mobs, violence are all now punishable by the law. White ministers like me quote black thinkers such as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. In our sermons, we read books and essays by John Perkins and Cornel West, and we speak out and tweet for racial equality. It is not uncommon for a white person to marry a person of color these days or to adopt a child of another race. So at the time of Dr. Martin Luther King, they couldn't marry outside their race at that particular time. So, you know, and that's the thing. They couldn't do it at that time. Okay. So, like Dr. Omar, he has a test study from just independent studies is saying that we need to stop dating outside our race because what happens is he didn't say your ordained wife or did God send somebody to you. What he's saying is choosing to, out of revenge or out of to get a job, a better job, or this and that. And what he's doing is he basically sees how the police do the black man, because the black man is dating his daughter. You know, he's dating his daughter, and he's upset about it. Like, he doesn't like that. Or his son is listening to hip hop. But mainly, he's saying, you can't. I don't want a dude just running up on my um, white daughter because he's revenged by a black woman, or he's bitter by a black woman. And fathers they probably see that, and they're like, okay, well, I don't want you dating my daughter, and you're like, you know what I mean? You're not. This is. I'm so me. I just love to be me. All right, but you know, so when they're pulling these guys over, they're racist because their daughters are with the black guy, and the black guy probably might be going to women to women. He didn't ask the father for his hand in marriage, and he's basically dating her and going to. He's dating me. You're going to the next and the next and the next. And some of it could be revenge from your dating a black man, and some of it might be nothing wrong with that black man, and he doesn't like any black man. And that's where they just need to break it down. They need to break it down. Why are you fighting a black man? Are you just hate him, period? Are you just jealous of him, period? And, you know, white women, you got to stop saying I'm dating a black man because of his penis size. Because this is what can start a race war. Okay, so I want to go back to what he was saying in our sermon. Thank you, Lord. We read books and essays by John Perkins and Cornel West, and we speak out on tweets and racial equality. It is not uncommon for a white person to marry a person of color these days or adopt a child of another race, but most white people would say that they deplore racism and are sickened by the shedding of black blood by the white bigots. Okay, so there is the white people that hate other white people and call them bigots. You know, it's so weird how you're saying you don't like white people. I mean, you don't like black people, but you harass different sets of white people, even because they're in religion. So we know that when people are really, really racist, they just the Satan. They're white devils. They're just those type of people are devils. They don't go to church. They don't believe in God. Period. They just need to just say it. And then it says, our hearts hurt over black casualties in Selma, Ferguson, Charleston, New York City, and all other places where racial violence has occurred. Where there is injustice, most white Americans would say that they stand with the victims and against perpetrators. But we do, people of color, feel that these things are true. Though many of these things are true, we still have a race problem. How do we know this? We know this because the subject of race will hurt for many people of color. Dr. Yancey writes, don't tell me about how many black friends you have. Don't tell me that you are married to someone of color. Don't tell me that you voted for Obama. Don't tell me that I'm the racist. Don't tell me that you don't see color. Don't tell me that I'm blaming whites for everything. To do so and to hide yet again. You may have never used the N-word in your life. You may hate the KKK, but that does not mean that you don't harbor racism and benefit from racism. After all, you are part of the system that allows you to walk into stores where you are not followed, where you get to go to bank loans and your skin does count against you, where you don't need to engage in the talk that black people of color must tell their children. As you reap comfort from being white, we suffer from being black and people of color. He was tearing up on here. Are we listening to each other? 10 years ago, Dr. Yancey words would have bothered me. I might have even dismissed them as unfair, unreasonable, and I would have assumed wrongfully that his chief goals was to make white people feel guilty for being white. But over the time, and because of the courage of truthfulness of the friends whose skin is darker than mine, my perspective has changed. These days, I find myself more sympathetic sympathetic towards and not offended by the words like ones written by Dr. Yancey, largely through the friendship and a lot of personal mistakes along the way. I hope that I am growing in my understanding of the majority, okay, minorities' experience in the modern West. The love, patience, candor of black Asian men and women in my life has given me a new set of ears for Dr. Yancey. Outcry. When I listen to him, I do not see a chip on the shoulder, unfounded anger, guilt, or some sort of reverse racism. Rather, I see a man representing the minority voice of appropriately fatigued from feeling unclean, unseen. I need some water. Unseen, unheard, misunderstood, and misjudged, and in many ways written off by white majorities. Okay, so recently a friend who is black shared an insight with me about people who riot, which, by the way, is not something unique to people of color. He said that writing is a terrible, damaging thing, yet it comes from feeling helpless in systems that are doom you by virtue of your situation and your color of your skin to being disadvantaged and overlooked. Writing by a friend said with the tenderness and concern is helplessness, acting out. It is trying to give a voice to something without a voice. And describing the acts of writing this way, my friend put his finger on the widely known truth. Hurting people hurt people. Ugly behavior can stem from being treated as ugly. Destruction behavior can stem from feeling destroyed. Dismissive behavior can stem from feeling dismissed. Diminished behavior can stem from feeling diminished. Pause here. Go back and reread the statement from Dr. Yancey. Can you hear the pain in his words? Are you listening carefully to the alienation, the marginalization, and otherness that he feels? Am I? Okay. So stuff white people like. All right. For the most part, it is a poke fun at ourself commentary on the blind spot and deficiency of a white culture. One section described how white people like ethnic diversity. White people love ethnic diversity, but only as it relates to restaurants. Many white people will spend hours talking about how great it is they have to get sushi and tacos on the same street, but when they send their kids to private schools with other rich white kids and live in a neighborhood like Monica Pacific. But it is important to note that white people do not like to be called out on this fact. If you run an ethnic restaurant, you can be guaranteed repeat business and huge tips. If you act like your white customers are inventors and culture for eating food that isn't sandwiches or pasta. Pasta. This is a wonderful book. God bless him. These words are very, very strong. That's why it's so good to read books, because you learn so much. Because sometimes you don't understand things, and it will help you understand. If people would read more, they would understand. You have to understand that culture in order to be productive out in the public and conduct yourself in a certain way when you're dealing with the public. As a white person, I can read a paragraph like this and laugh, but I wonder if such paragraph, while poking fun at how misinformed white people can be about true diversity, rubs salt in the wound for non-white readers. The kind of diversity describes above is more cosmetic than real, more relations and tokens. In fact, it's true diversity because it requires zero self-reflection of the change for ethnic majorities. On the other hand, cosmetic is a diversity costly to majority because it requires them to do all the bending, all the adjusting, all the adapting, all the sidelining, all the sacrificing of their own culture and heritage uniqueness. Okay, so assimilate into the white world where things are done in a white way. Wow, wow, wow. One day, I gave a sermon on diversity at Redeemer Presbyterian Church in New York City, where I'm serving as a preaching pastor at the time. Redeemers was about half white and half Asian. In my sermon, I said something that I thought would be resonate with Asians, brothers and sisters, and maybe even cause them to stand up and cheer and say it. God bless you.